Fine, isn't he? Well, one bloke who's got sort of playoffs of his own on his mind at the moment. I know he does love a bit of footy back here in Australia and has had some back issues on the way through, of course. He's Stuart Appleby, who's been good enough to join us on Inside the Ropes. Stuart, thanks for your time. Great to have you on the show.
Yeah, well, finally I've got here.
Yes, well, it's nice to have you here. You're a Carlton man, aren't you? So you won't be overly excited necessarily about this year's finals campaign over here?
Look, I don't. I mean, there's a few teams mentioned Essendon, and obviously they've had some issues. Now they're playing really well, so that's great to see that team's taken, a fresh breath of oxygen. But it's been tough for the Blues, and look, I just love good footy. I mean, been some cracking games. I can't pick a team who's going to win. I mean, you've got teams that should be destroying one team and they lose by, a kick or something. So, it's every season seems to be interesting. But my coach, Steve Bann, he's a big Hawks man, and so they had a hell of a run, but sort of the honeymoon's well and truly over.
He's a very good man, Banny.
How he and Lynchy go together then? Because Lynchy's
mad.
Well, they wouldn't talk football at all, would they? Those two.
They may not have spoken since '84, Stu.
Yeah. Lynchy's definitely into his footy. Let's just say that, mate.
Mate, there's another sport that you're linked with other than golf, and I know you keep a passionate eye on it, and you're appealing to all our bogan friends out there when you engage your sort of rev head love. You're still passionate about the motor cars, obviously. Yeah,
I do. I mean, it's I don't obviously get back to Australia much. I just remember. I mean, everyone has things, whether it's the sport they follow as a kid. What team you first went with, whether it was your uncle, your dad, your mum. For me, it was like watching Bathurst as a kid, and just watching this event, unfold. And it just seemed to always love that. Dad was a bit that way too, but he was busy chasing the farm, and when I sat down on the weekend, wild water sports was something I loved to watch when I was a kid. And obviously the V8 supercars, and I guess we're about to go in a new iteration of that very shortly with a very big rule book change. So that'll be interesting to see how that evolves. But so, yeah, I sign online, pay I think it's nearly $30-40 a year, and I can watch all the races and replays, and every month I just rip them all out, start ripping out whatever's been going on that month. So it's good fun.
So I'll give you one choice before we start asking you about actual golf. If I could give you a green jacket, or you could hoist the Premiership Cup as captain of Carlton, or you could win the World Drivers' Championship Formula One, which would you take?
Oh, boy. I think the green jacket would be pretty good. I have to say that, don't I? It's my own vocation. Although, I've got to tell you, one thing that pops to mind that was one of the most awesome things I ever got to participate in was 2005 Targa Tasmania in the Lamborghini Gallardo, which was just released, and sort of a long story there, which I won't bore you with, but I got to be, the celebrity driver with Paul Stokel was the sort of the talent driver, and I got to complete the whole thing without crashing a $400,000 car. Had an absolute blast. Was the most amazing. It was, to be honest, the whole week was amazing, and it felt better in some ways than any victory I've ever had on the golf course. Totally different. That was one of the coolest things I've ever had to do.
So just before we do get off motorsport and onto golf, you're not the only Australian professional golfer who's got a love for motorsport. I mean, a few spring to mind. There's Greeny, Fraze, Wade Ormsby, I think, is pretty keen in this sort of stuff. There's probably a few others, Stewie. Is there, out of those blokes who claim to know about the caper, who wouldn't you get behind? Who wouldn't you get Who wouldn't you get in the car with when they were behind the wheel and they're doing 300 kilometre sort of clicks around a circuit? Who's the one you wouldn't trust?
Oh, I tell you what, I can't think of anyone I want to get in the car with. I can't think of any obvious choice, and they'd probably say the same thing about me, and maybe I would too. But I mean, most of the time, if I've ever gone fast, it's with a proper driver on a proper racetrack. So to have some hack driver and a skilled golfer, that makes me nervous.
So let's talk some golf. You're 46 years of age, and you're still obviously massively committed to what you're doing, and you don't give any indication as to a man who's kind of looking to approach the sort of the retirement years of your kind of golfing career. You're going back to the FedEx playoffs this week, and we know what the ambition is regarding that. Where's your head at the moment in terms of where you see yourself and your career?
Well, I mean, I certainly thought about the opposite of what you just talked about. I'm like, man, this is getting hard. You're not always having your body there that you sort of, I guess, you're expected to be there week in, week out, and really spending now about 4 or 5 years having to manage it, and then, it's sort of just, and pulling out of, quite a few tournaments, considering my whole career. I've really never had to pull out of anything due to, pain. So that's certainly made a big dent in my ability to go, what is performance? What am I, what level do I want to play at, or can I play at? So all of those things got certainly kicked around, knowing that my body couldn't wake up every day and feel right. Confidence got absolutely hammered, and it's been difficult. But at the same time, I'm like, look, it's not an easy sport, and the great thing about golf is that you do play your way into a field, and there's no coach picking you based on your form. You are your form. You are the coach. You are the selector. And if you don't make the grade, you get told you don't get to turn up to the tournament the next week, the next year, whatever it is. So for me this week, and a lot of guys, we're the sort of the best of the losers, and we're playing the first of what we call it really the web finals, and there's 4 of 5 weeks we get to play and shoot out for one of 25 cards. There's already 25 cards locked out that the web tour guys have been fighting for all year, and all they're going to do is jostle around and decide the final, I guess, seeding within those 25, and there's a fresh 25 up for grabs for all the other guys that are eligible. So 126, so the first guy that lost his card, 126 to 200 on the tour, that's me. We all get to join the web guys, and then they take their 26th guy to 100, and we all merge, and we basically shoot it out for those 4 tournaments and try and find the leading money winners over those the leading 25 guys. And those 25 web guys will move on, and the 25 freshies will move on, and we see what happens in 2018. So for me, it's sort of hit and miss. If I don't get one of the 25 cards, I'm sort of no man's land and pretty much out of a job. I spent my whole year writing a lot of letters week in, week out to tournaments saying, hey, I'd love to play, anything I can do for you. So I've never written so much since I was at school to go and play, and all I managed to play really was, based on my category and ranking, was 16 events. And you really need to be, you really want to be playing well into the 20s to really have some form going. And I played awful all year. There was no two ways about it.
But you came close to avoiding all this stuff, Stu, a few weeks ago at Barracuda. And it must sort of, to Andy's point, it must sort of push you along to think, that my best is still right up there. I mean, by my reckoning, you had a little bump shot to try and actually win the tournament. Yeah,
look, to be honest, the body started to feel a little bit better. I started to have a little bit more zip. I'd lost a bit of zip, and I'd lost a bit of, control of the body in the downswing, right when you're putting the foot down. And I'd lost a lot of length. I'd lost probably, 20 metres or more in the last 10 years. And, is that critical? No, but if you're going to be short, you better be straight. And I was neither. Hitting it in the fairway, so it was tough work. But Barracuda was nice. Now, that was what they call an opposite field event. So during the same time was the Bridgestone tournament. So, we had half the points up for grabs. And obviously we had a lot weaker field, so that helped. But it managed to give me enough points that week to get me inside the 200 on the points list. So that lets me come to what's going to start tomorrow here in Columbus, Ohio. So, that was nice. It was basically, it was that or nothing. I mean, if you're not in the 200 in the FedEx, you have to go back to Q school. Literally, you have to go back to Q school to get to the web tour. There is no Q school anymore for the tour. So I would have to go back to high school to get back to university and start again, and try and graduate that way. So it would have been. I'm still in it. How it all pans out, I don't know, but the body's feeling better.
That's great to hear, Apples, and we wish you all the best in your motives and your drive to achieve all you can over in the US. But on an Aussie-centric note, what are the chances that we'll see you over here over the Aussie summer down at 13th Beach, or whether it be up at the Aussie in Sydney?
Yeah, 0. Because this is my first non-Aussie trip that I'm even coming home for. I've actually spent the last couple of summers coming back to Australia. I haven't pulled up very good on the travel. and really had to bail on playing, and which has been frustrating because, man, the courses, unfortunately we don't play in Melbourne, which is unfortunately a real loss for, I don't know, the spectators, and obviously a loss as a player, some of the finest courses around. But for me, no. It's going to be a Christmas in the States. I've got some my wife's sister, Kelsey Appleby. She's married to my cousin Ben, and they're heading back. They're heading over to the States later this year. So we're sort of going to have a US bound Christmas, which is a bit of a pity. I love my Aussie trips. I miss the sounds, the smell, everything, and so no golf for me.
I'm glad you cleared up the cousin thing there. I thought we had a bit of a Mississippi moment sort of happening in front of us. Stu, just about that not travelling well, and it goes back to your back, I assume. It's been an ongoing thing. I remember when you won the Australian Masters, it was a fight not only against the course and the weather that week, but it was also a fight for you to stay vertical and on plane and everything involved with your swing. How have you managed that over so many years?
Well, that was the strangest week. I'll never forget that week. On Tuesday, I was hitting balls on the range, and I was hitting it horrendous. And I'm not lying. If you saw me, watched me hit, you'd be turning to your mates going, what the hell is that? And I mean, I'm looking at my coach going, what's going on? I couldn't hit it, and I didn't have any pain or anything, but I saw Tina Mayo, who's down at the Cobell Osteopath down there, and she was at the club. She's been working on me for years, and she goes, what's up with your hip? And all of a sudden she starts straightening me out, and Coach Ban says, let's just work on doing this in the swing. And I just started to hit it good and started parting. By Sunday, I couldn't believe it. I drove out of the Victoria Golf Club at the last car to leave going, I just won the Masters? How the hell did that happen? I was about to almost pull out of the tournament going, I can't do that. I can't show the public these amount of skills, and it was awful. But it's been really hard. I honestly thought after surgery that, great, I'm going to be better than ever, and I'm just going to be awesome, and back to, feeling like I was 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. But and anyone listening who's had severe back pain and discs all over the shop and nerve impingement and that, the body takes on a whole new life after that. And me trying to learn it and playing golf, that was bad, worst sport you could ever pick to try and bend over and rotate. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
So, for you right now, is it more physical? And we've followed your career closely for a long time now, Stewie. Is it more a physical challenge for you or a mental challenge in front of you right now?
It's been both. You certainly have standards, and I'm watching a lot of footballers on TV, and you're seeing some that are retiring, and you go, man, you're still good. You still can run, and and these guys are, if they're lucky, if you're really a good footballer, you'll get 10 years in the game. Well, I've had, really over 20, I guess, as a professional. Most are really those years in the States. And obviously senior tour is just around the corner. So, I can't imagine what it's like to be, really retired by the time you're 30, 35. What do you do? Where do you go? And I'm so fortunate that, I can get to another tour and do what I do. And, it has my physical confidence had taken a beating, my emotional confidence. I had plenty of times that I've just looked and thought, am I really up? Do I really want to do this? I practice and get no results, and that's really tough. But you just got to sit there and go, right, this is the game. Just sending me a message. What you're doing is not working. Just find another way. And that's the beauty about golf. You get so many, I guess, stabs at the key lock to twist it and try another key and try something else. Very few sports you get to do that.
Yeah, let's touch on that a little bit further, Apples. You talk about golf, and you've had a couple of decades plus out there on various tours, and how tremendous that is, that it is a game that you can play throughout your life. And I know that you've been really instrumental in developing juniors with your own foundation over a number of years, and I can pull up a couple of names like rookie pro out there, Brett Coletta now. He's been through your programs. Now he's on the Big Boys Tour. Matthias Sanchez, I believe he featured in your opening of your Stuart Appleby Golf Foundation as a 5-year-old. Now he's won the Aussie Amateur. That must give you a lot of fulfilment, all those off-course things that you do as well.
Well, look, that's what's blown me away a little bit because, I wanted to get. Look, I knew what it was for me. Now I was a mid-teenager playing the game, and what blows me away is I wonder whether Stuart Appleby would have got any roots in the ground 10 or 20 years later. Like, so Stuart Appleby, the golfer, takes it up when he's 14, can't even break 90 or 100. And you've got, Matthias, you've got Coletta. These guys are just so much better than me at that age, and even maybe 5 years or not, and more than that. It's just the talent, the young talent that I never thought would ever come from something that I guess I put in the ground, the seed. Now, it has to be run, and there's so many key people that have made the difference. And today, the Victorian Golf Association has made a huge push, and I love to see in my heart when I hear a parent come up and go, my son or my daughter joined your thing when they were 6, 7, 8, and my goal was to make someone, like your panel right there, that in 20 years' time that they'll be doing a radio show and they might say, gee, man, I remember when I first started playing golf, it was because of. And that you're going to be a member, or they're going to be members of clubs one day, or that's going to be the sport that they fall in love with. The chances of being any good and being a representation of the highest level, extremely minor. But you just mentioned only 2 names of very good players. So that's really cool. And just to see that talent's fantastic.
Yeah, no, you've, as I said, you've played such an instrumental role, and I can have a personal reflection here. I remember I played in a very, very few junior events, but I did play in one of yours down at the Sands Torquay, and you were a rock star. You arrived in a chopper, landed on the fairway, National 9 News, the cameras were rolling, and I'm going, wow. So thank you from me, but there's thousands of kids out there that you have, in your own way, developed.
Look, it's that stuff I had really no idea about, and the parents are the ones that sort of really connect me back to, I don't see these kids, and I don't see those parents, but when they come to me and say something like, I feel really connected that I didn't know that this has become part of their life. I remember my dad and driving me down to Melbourne. It was a 4-hour drive. We'd play 36 Saturday, 36 Sunday. We'd drive home. Parents, grandparents, uncles, aunties, they play such a huge role in that sort of travel schedule of, young golfers. And I really appreciate that and remember that what Dad did for me in those early years.
That's awesome.
Do you keep an eye on the young kids coming through to, the Curtis Luck, Ryan Ruffles, when they sort of start making their move over there, Stu?
Well, I have. I've bumped into and Curtis and actually sort of seen him a lot this week. We've been he's like a coffee snob. So I'm asking him, it was Matt Goggin, and now I'm asking him where the coffees are. And we found 2 brilliant coffee shops because that's what we really lack over here. So we found 2 in Columbus that are really good. Matt Goggin's a joke. I said to him today, I said, do you keep notes on every coffee shop in the country, or are you just like Rain Man? He says, Rain Man. So, yeah, those guys are very gifted. Like I say, just awesome talents and really nice guys. Ruffles, he's looking for some form. He's obviously struggled lately. I hope he really gets his head above water and gets going. I'm going to talk about those 2 names a lot. I obviously talked about Curtis this year. I was doing TV, for Fox, back to you guys, and just seeing, seeing the youth, seeing the talent, and just mostly, I hope, seeing really good young men, out there in the world stage representing Australia and saying the right things.
Stu, there's a couple of things that I want to talk to you about regarding your career, your body of work before time gets on the fly here and we have to let you go. I was at New South Wales in 2009 for the Aussie Open, and you got the wrong side of the draw. The weather was horrific. I mean, the weather you played in was absolutely horrific. And it took Adam Scott to beat you over the 4 rounds, but I think you led at the halfway mark with kind of a couple of 60, 66, 68, something like that, which was a joke how well you played in those conditions. You've always been a great bad weather player. How highly do you rate? I know you would have liked to have gone on and won the tournament, but how highly do you rate what you did on the Thursday and Friday in those conditions of that golf course?
That was another funny sort of section of, golf I remember in Australia. It was awfully windy. All I remember, when you hit a putt as a professional, you sort of can tell whether you've made the putt really early on. Whether, when you've hit it, you can tell ooh, this feels good. All this. I reckon those first 2 days, I must have made 4, 5, 6 putts that I went, that's awful. And it went in. And I don't know how I got it in the hole that easily in those conditions on those first days. Now, the last 2 days caught up with me, and Scotty ran me down. But those first 2 days were, I mean, it's one of my most favourite courses, but that was hell on earth. And I don't know how I got the clubs right. I don't know how I got it in the hole. I was a long way from in awe of myself, because I was like, how lucky did I have to get in 2 days to do that? But I've loved that place. I love Australia. I love the wind, and we just don't see that. You just don't see that over here anymore.
So the next one is, a couple of years before that, again, weather plays its part in the Masters. You lead after 3 rounds. We're talking, the Green Jacket Masters now.
Yeah.
Can you remember how I've got about 5 questions that I can maybe roll into one, and you can, but, how you felt with the spotlight on you after 3 rounds, how you slept that night, how you felt the morning after, how your warm-up felt, how you felt going on to the first tee. Can you remember how you dealt, with all of that?
Okay, so I remember slept good that night before, and it was really mostly my attitude for the week. Like, I really struggled at Augusta to play any good. I think the first year, maybe it was 97. I think I finished in the mid-20s. So I played good for a guy that had no knowledge of Augusta. But every year after that, I just put so much pressure on myself and just couldn't really play any good. Could never seem to manage the back nine and so on. So this particular year was really cold. Like, it was, with the wind chill, it was in the sort of early teens at the best, even cooler down through Amen Corner in the shadows. And I just decided, I thought it's going to be a hard week. It's going to be hard, and it turned out to be dry, and I thought it's going to be hard for everybody. So, I don't know, just step away from it a bit. And I played really well all week, played well Saturday. I think I had an ugly score on 17, maybe a double or something at the end of Saturday. Going into the final round with, I think, a one-shot lead, and playing with Tiger. Playing with Tiger is difficult at the best of times, because there's so much sort of, energy around, crowd energy. I think Tiger and Phil are the 2 guys that have it, but, Tiger by it in spades. So I was pretty nervous on the first tee, as you'd be, and I sort of blurred it right and get it in the hole for whatever it was, I think a 5 maybe down the first. And so I saw my lead's gone. And I'm like, well, that doesn't really matter. There's a long way to go, 17 holes. For me to have won that, let's say I won by 1 shot, I'm looking at the score I had to shoot, and I'm like, man, that would have been like some seriously good golf in those conditions. And I always felt like I'm in it. I'm there, but there was a point where you're not in it. When you know that there's a chance for a big tournament and it's now gone from your grasp, that can be the hardest part to stay focused and, the silver lining in the light, because they don't come around very often. It's not like Tiger where you're going to have a chance to win a major, maybe, when he was playing well, every other major. So the next day, how did I feel? I think I was a bit gutted, but I realised that, that's sort of the way the game works. I felt like I'd given it my best effort, and what else are they going to do? But when I look back now, I guess in the later years of my career, I think, was that mine to win? Not really. It wasn't anything obvious that said that should be mine or could be mine.
Yeah.
The British Open years earlier, I got the playoff with Steve Elkington, another Aussie, Thomas LeVay and Ernie Els. I'm like, man, if I had 1 shot less, one of those days, I wasn't even in a playoff.
Yes.
It's a whole different career, and but that's the game. It's always tormenting you like that.
Let's travel, just one more question. Let's travel from Augusta to Kahuna, where you've grown up. And I think your folks are still out in a dairy farm out there.
Yep.
I want to know, it's a bit of a trivial question. What's your best score around Kahuna? Have you had a flashing 9, or tell us something special from Kahuna?
They're about to have the Kahuna Pro-Am up there, I think, any minute now almost. So I think all the pros out there have whipped what would have been my course record. So I guess by having a tournament with my name on it, I certainly haven't helped me stay on the scoreboard for low score record. But I think they've shot down in the early 60s. But I think mine might have, the best round I ever had there was probably 6 under. It's so short now. I played it a couple of years ago with Dad, And I remember, clubs I used to hit into holes or, locations in the fairway. And it's just so different to when I was a kid. But, man, I love that place. It's just the gum trees and, I love camping out in the bush. And, it's super memory lane. I guess as I got a little bit older, I tend to be drawn more to Australia. And, I could say, I almost don't know why, like whether it's home. I know my home's here for really ever, maybe not, but, I've got a growing family, but I still love getting back to a little small town on the river and seeing my family and friends and, get out the bush and cook a few snags on the grill and have a great time. So it never will leave me.
Unbelievable to hear the difference in pronunciation from Joe saying kahuna and you saying cuna.
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 Well, what would Joe know? She can't speak proper Australian English.
Apple's just one about that, and before I let you go with Andy, from Cuna all the way to 46-year-old who's based in the States, nearly $30 million US on that one tour alone. You're 30th all time on that money list. Those figures from a little boy in Cuna are just unbelievable, I would imagine, to try and get your head around.
Well, sometimes I actually do wonder how the hell does all this happen? I can't sit there and go, well, I did it because whatever. Was I certainly not the most gifted player? I mean, there was so many better players than me, so I really don't know how it happened. You can hit a million balls, that doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So maybe I was just young enough and dumb enough to not know how hard it was supposed to be, and stayed focused and just and naive enough, and I guess made hay while the sun shone. So yeah, I'm very fortunate because I certainly never. Maybe that was a good part about it. Maybe I picked a sport accidentally that let me sort of tortoise and the hare it, and I was the tortoise and could hang in there. But it's just been awesome to meet so many people. To ever think I was going to come and live to America. I remember first leaving the bush to go to Melbourne to play, and that was intimidating, let alone catch a flight and live and marry a woman from America and have kids. That's amazing. Not an unusual story for a lot of Australians. We have to certainly make moves away from what is really a small country to go international to whatever, ply our trade, but very lucky boy.
Well, of all the feathers in your cap, Stewie, I reckon the biggest one is that after all of these years over in America, you have not lost one scintilla of your Australian accent, and that is a credit to you. That is a credit to you.
I don't know about that. I when I go to restaurants, and I try to order a glass of water, they have no idea. So I have to go, can I have a glass of water? In there. Water doesn't mean anything over here. So I do get called up a little bit on my accent when I come home, and it's amazing how lazy I can talk and people will understand you because I come home and I'm still a little sharp with my words, and people are like, oh, you sound a bit American. I'm like, well, what did I say? And they'll say the word, and I'm like, oh, that's because they haven't got a clue.
Exactly.
So, no, I do cringe a bit when I come back to Australia. Here's so many Australians, which is weird to me in my home country.
Mate, good luck with those web playoffs. There's, obviously you've done everything. You've done about as much as everything as you can do in the game without winning one of the big four. And you're a credit to yourself, and you're a credit to work ethic, and to the great nation whose flag you carry. So, mate, it's terrific to have you on Inside the Ropes. I really appreciate you being so generous with your time. Thanks for joining us.
That's all right. If I can keep your listeners bored, I'll come back another
anytime. I'll hold you to it. Stuart Appleby joining us on Inside the Ropes.
The Golf Australia website is now the place to go to look up your handicap and so much more. Whether you're out and about on your phone or in the office trying to avoid work, just go to golf.org.au and punch your golf link number into the box at the top of the homepage. Who knows, maybe that last round was just good enough to put you in single figures. While you're on the site, check out the daily golf results at your club, view our course index for up-to-date ratings, read the latest golf news from home and abroad, listen to Australian golf podcasts and interviews, and watch video tournament highlights or tips to improve your game. It's everything a golf tragic could want. Visit golf.org.au today, the home of Australian golf.
G'day, my name's Hannah Green. Thanks to Inside the Ropes for making all my travels on the Symetra Tour so much fun.
what a joy it was to spend some time with Stuart Appleby. We only just scratched the surface with him, I reckon.
We will get him back on his offer there. I mean, we haven't touched on so many things, Joe, that he's accomplished.
I was just about to say, we haven't even touched on his 59.
Yeah.
Like, unbelievable. So, there's lots that we can talk about. Like, I could have reeled off another few experiences of my own, in how he sort of empowered me and a whole heap.
So what do you remember
juniors.
about that? What do you remember of that experience?
Well, I think Rockstar, as I said, really summed it up. I was like, what's going on here? And then all of a sudden it's Stuart Appleby.
What year was that? How long ago?
God, you're stretching my memory. It would be over 10 years ago. I thought it might have been 17, maybe 16. So, 10, 11 years ago.
Yeah.
And just awesome. And then the other experience I had with him, which I didn't bring up, was 2009 Aussie Masters. He organised hundreds of kids, maybe even thousands of kids, to be flooded the 18th green on the Pro-Am Day, and he invited Tiger Woods out, and they did a clinic for all these kids.
Wow.
And I remember sitting there going, that is just awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. He's like, how many rounds of golf he's played? It's impossible. No one will have ever kept count. I always reckon when you cark it, wherever we go next, someone has every stat. How many times you sneezed, how many movies you watched, how many Nutrigrains you ate, how many rounds of golf you played. Like, somebody has every stat that pertains to everything in your life, which is just this stupid thing I've carried around with me since I was about 5. But he's played 640 professional as a pro. Well, he turned pro in 92. He's teed it up in 640 professional tournaments around the world. So that's just as a pro. Just as a pro, he's played 640 times, which is, when you think about that, it's absolutely mind-boggling.
Nearly 13 years straight without a break.
Exactly. And for 12 years, this was something that staggered me when I had a look at it when we knew he was coming on. For 12 years between 97 and 2008, he lived inside the top 50 in the world on the official golf world rankings. Yeah. He was a staple member of the elite players on the planet. And it's no surprise. I mean, you mentioned the 30 million he won, and the superannuation that's coming his way is just ridiculous. But so it's no surprise that he's won that much, that he was ranked so highly for such a long period of time. But it underlines how good he was at an elite level for such a long time. Yeah.
And to have dealt with a lot of adversity in his personal life, physically, and still just be such a great bloke. He's a credit to Australian golf.
He is. And he's, as we mentioned, he's playing in the Webb playoffs.